Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Divergent Comics podcast. Uh, Today, I have a new comic book writer on here. And I can't remember. I think you found me on Threads initially, and we kind of talked
Yeah.
about you coming on here. But it's funny because when Nigel reached out to me, I didn't realize that he was part of Wise Acre Comics, and I've been following Frederick for the last like 8 years or so, and so it's really cool to kind of see that I have someone a part of that group on there. So that's really awesome.
Thanks, man.
Full transparency, we're recording this on a Saturday night before this episode goes live. So Nigel, before we go any further, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a pretty cool evening. Nothing to complain about.
Nice, that's good to hear.
Yes.
So as I kind of told you before we started recording, I've been doing something new with my podcast, and I feel like it's been pretty fun. I haven't heard anyone complain about it yet. But before we get started into like who you are as a writer and about your story, what we're going to be talking about, I would like to start with Would You Rather? So, for those of you who have been watching for the last couple of weeks and those of you who haven't, I'm going to explain. Would You Rather is a new segment. I pose three would you rather questions and I have my guests talk about it for a few minutes. So, Nigel, first, would you rather? Would you rather have super strength or would you rather have super speed?
Super strength.
Super strength.
Yeah, super strength.
I feel like a lot of people go for super strength. I'm not mad at it.
Nah, it's a although with superpowers it's almost like a what do you call it? It's almost like a monkey's paw kind of wish because
Right.
super speed, if you're not durable, you could die. You know what I
That is
mean?
true.
And super strength, if you're not durable, you could kind of probably get crushed trying
Yeah.
to lift something too strong, heavy, right? But I think of the two of them, super strength is the one that's the most useful and the most manageable, unless you kind of dial down your super speed and kind of using it for like cheating at the Olympics or something like that.
That's funny. I've never thought about that. But when you
Yeah,
said that,
become a super athlete. Just dial it back.
right. Like it reminds me of The Incredibles when Dash finally got the okay to use his powers to be an athlete. And he almost won the race, but he was like, no, 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 don't win, don't win. And he ended up coming to second place. They celebrated him, and everyone just kind of look at him kind of crazy, like, really? Like, what did that's so funny. But yeah, that would be a great use of your powers if you were to be a super athlete, make tons of money off endorsements and stuff. Easy way to be rich. All right, second one. Would you rather always be hot or would you rather always be cold?
Okay, so I'm from the Caribbean, so I,
Okay.
I could rather deal with the heat. Uh, I guess from experience, I've learned to manage heat, and to me, of the two, all of them are equally as dangerous in terms of you could be killed, but somehow the freezing to death is more of a yeah, no, no thanks.
I think freezing to death is kind of more terrifying
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
like after a while you start to lose feeling in your limbs versus like your phalanges and your toes, and then next thing you know is your hands, your arms, your
yeah.
legs, and then
You just go to sleep and that's it. Yep.
yep, and that frostbite is no joke.
No.
I like it. All right, so final question: would you rather only watch your favorite TV series for a year, or would you rather watch your favorite only watch your favorite movie for a year?
That's a kind of that's a hard one.
Yeah.
I guess TV series because you would have more flexibility, more episodes. Yeah. So yeah, TV series.
Yeah, that's actually a really good choice.
Yeah. TV series.
Because like if you have the right TV series, like if you have like for anyone who's like a fan of something like Law and Order or Grey's Anatomy, like you watch that for like 2 months and you basically get to start over at that point.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Nigel, just to kind of get to know you a little bit, what clicked in your mind, or what like transpired for you to be like, you know what, I want to be a writer.
Um, it was more of I wanted to be a comic book writer. I had no like I didn't want to get into regular writing. I just wanted to go
Mm,
into comic book writing. I wanted to create a comic book, and I didn't even look at it as writing. I just kind of looked at it as storytelling. But
mm-hmm,
over the years, after doing some like self studying, where meaning like I didn't go to like a formal school or college for it, but I
mm-hmm,
did a lot of research online, did a lot of watching videos,
mm-hmm,
anything to do with character studies, anything to do with plot. I just kind of just picked up as much as I could.
mm-hmm.
I would say that now I'm a little bit more into writing, or I would say, well, someone says, yes, do you write? I would say, yes, I write comic books. But it was something that about 15 years ago or so, I wanted to do a comic book. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I kind of started from.
Nice. So, since you've always wanted to write comic books, was there a specific comic that you really that kind of was like, you know what, I want to write something like this?
Right. So you kind of get influenced by what you read.
Mm-hmm.
So I was reading two books at a time. I was reading a Punisher Max, which
Mm,
was a really good uh, thing to kind of rich kind of stories done in
yeah,
six issue arcs,
yeah,
hyper violent, hyper action, almost like a TV series, almost like a movie.
it was, yeah.
And then the other thing I was reading was The Walking Dead. And
Uh,
what I loved about The Walking Dead was how it was able to invoke so much emotion
mm-hmm,
without color, without caption. There's no caption in that book. So everything you pick up is from characters, dialogue, uh, faces, the artwork, and some they're colorizing it now. But
mm-hmm.
when I used to read it, I actually forgot it was in black and white because it was such a rich story. So when I first started to write, I structured a lot of my style on The Walking Dead. So I didn't
Mm-hmm.
like to use caption. But and as I got more comfortable, I then started to use it. Excuse me, because sometimes caption can be a crutch to lean on.
Mm-hmm.
So learning to write without caption was
Yeah.
actually very useful.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I think, first off, like you chose two really good options for like kind of like jumping into comics and inspiring you to want to be a writer because I mean those are two really incredible stories. So really good choices in that regards. But yeah, I agree. Like many times you'll see a lot of stories which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but a lot of stories will use captions quite often to tell the story.
Yeah,
And I think in some instances it works. Like I think there's some like silent comics where you don't hear you don't see any dialogue, but you see a caption to kind of like set the tone as to like what's going on type of thing. But
yeah, yeah,
I think everything is good in moderation. So using those captions moderately works, I think, perfectly fine.
yeah.
So would you say, just based off of what you've explained just now with Walking Dead and Punisher Max, would you say that like kind of the high action adventure type stories are the type of genre or the genres that you prefer when it comes to reading and watching TV and things of that nature?
Yeah. A little bit of drama, a little bit of
Okay.
tension, but mainly set in that same genre. So I like
Mm-hmm.
science fiction. So one of the science fiction shows I was watching was The Expanse.
Mm-hmm.
So I like stuff like The Expanse. I like stuff like Elysium, District 9. I like westerns. So I kind of
Mm-hmm.
draw from multiple genres. I kind of like some of everything, from even
Yeah.
Korean dramas. I would sit and watch some Korean dramas, and
Nice.
and what's interesting, they have some of the most interesting premises in terms
Mm-hmm.
of shows that you wouldn't even think of, right? So I like to kind of absorb as much media as possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I wouldn't say that I would nail myself down to one specific genre,
Mm-hmm.
but I like a bit of everything. There are certain things I'm not a fan of in terms of I would create. I'm not going to create it,
Right.
but I still will enjoy it. So I will never write a rom com, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean I'm not going to watch one or I wouldn't enjoy one, that kind of thing. Uh, but I kind of like things like these John Wick movies and that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm inspired by those. So I may want to do something very similar to that. You know,
That makes sense. I like that. I found just in the time that I've been doing these interviews that a lot of the best writers are the ones that can absorb and enjoy multiple genres, whether they write in that genre or not. So it is like you're able to pick up small things from each of
yeah.
those genres. And it's funny that you use rom com as your example, as one that you don't necessarily feel like you would write, because I kind of could feel a little bit of like the rom com element towards the tail end of the book we're going to talk about that you wrote. It wasn't necessarily one of those
I
things where it's like, oh, it's a rom com, but it's like I can see kind of like
yeah.
the
I like
delicate
to
touch used
yeah.
with it.
I like to put a bit of humor into stuff.
Yeah.
I one things I one things about comic book writing.
Mm-hmm.
My approach is I try not to take it too seriously.
Mm.
It's still a comic book at the end of the day. So when I
Yeah.
said not in terms of don't take it too seriously to do a good job,
Right.
but don't take it too seriously in terms of kind of have fun with it.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Some people kind of write books and they're they're like almost like you're forgetting this is a comic book and it's
Mm-hmm.
entertainment and it's supposed to be yes you're telling a story or it may be touching on a social issue or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still a part of it that has to be fun or interested in some kind of way. And because
I
you
agree.
smile in a serious story or at a serious moment, or it doesn't mean that you're kind of disrespecting it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Sometimes you may crack a joke, a little joke. If a person's at a funeral, you may say something funny about what this person did that brings you joy and it may make you smile. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But it's still within the theme of the whole thing. So
Right.
try to have fun with the creation of comic books as much as
Yeah.
possible.
That is a really good analogy because it reminds me of Inside Out. I love that movie. Anytime I get a chance to like reference Inside Out, I will reference it. But it's like at the end of Inside Out when we realize that joy and sadness fighting was causing the problems,
Mm.
but them coming together and giving us those like sad but joyful memories is what made like
Yeah,
that movie so impactful to me. So I agree with you. Like, yeah, you may be in a sad moment, but there could be some type of levity that comes from it, or you may be in a very tense frustrating moment, a sense of levity can still be used in that as well. So I
yeah.
like that. I like that you brought that out. So when you're writing, what is your favorite part of your writing process?
Um, it kind of depends on my mood. Uh,
Hmm.
so sometimes it's the idea process where I've come up with this brilliant idea, or and I can't wait to put it down on paper. So
Hmm.
that kind of sometimes the fire there, and then plotting it all out, and it's finished plot. The plot is on the page, so that's the enjoyable part. Another
Hmm.
part, sometimes depending if I was working on something for a long time, is uh, I think of all of them, getting back the pages from the artist.
Hmm. That's always nice.
Yeah,
That is
getting
always
back.
nice.
Yeah, there's nothing like a rough week at work,
Yeah.
and then you see your email, 2 pages, and you just kind of get picked up. You feel good again. And then if it happens again when the colorist comes in with his colors,
Hmm.
you just kind of like you kind of get it's that dopamine hit.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. That do you feel like when you have you well let me ask like this. Have you ever gotten to a point in a story where you're kind of just stuck and then you come back to it and it's like the light bulb goes off and
Yeah,
you're just able to flow.
yeah. I actually have. So what I kind of do is, if I do write a script, I wrote a script now, and
Mm,
I maybe finished it. Sometimes I would put it down, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, for about maybe 2 months, 3 months. And when I
mm,
come back, I will be looking at it with fresh eyes. I'm not going to be
mm,
so in love with the story. So it means that certain things that I'm going to be able to critique it and say, well, okay, this doesn't make sense. Let me change this here, or things that I was battling with that I wasn't sure how this to fix this. It all
mm,
comes back, and it's all either some experience you've dealt with within the 2 months, or having that clear mind where you're now looking at it fresh. You kind of just, as you said, you just kind of flow with it and you kind of
mm.
fix it. And I would tell anyone, if you can step away from your project for a little bit,
Yeah.
that's a good have someone read it. Even when people give you feedback or critique,
Mm,
I usually don't adjust what they tell me to do right away. I let it
mm,
sit for a while,
mm.
because that way when I go at it, I'm going at it with a more neutral state. Because sometimes you kind of a little frustrated, and you kind of saying, "What do you mean you don't like this character?" So then you say, "Well," but when you come back and you read it, and then you read the critique, and the person says, "Well, maybe this," and you go back and say, "Well, let me see how I can fix it," and sometimes you make it better.
That is true. I think like I don't. I think not many people realize how important that break is
Mhm.
to just kind of like get the story off of you, especially if you've been working on it for a long period of time. Like I don't know if you've ever had a story where you've worked on it for months or almost a year, and then you finally take that break and you come back to it and it's like, okay, this actually it is pretty solid, but here are some things I can fix, or what was I thinking when I wrote this type of thing? Like it's one of those things that
Yeah.
really helps reset your mind and your framing. So that's really good advice.
Mhm.
So time for our next segment. I want to do. I think it's becoming one of my favorite aspects of doing the podcast. Your top three. So
Good.
this is where I'm gonna ask your top three favorite whatever, and I want you to list out what your three would be. And I try to make this difficult, but not like overly difficult. But I hope that it's a fun one. So today, Nigel, what I want to know is what are your top three favorite Marvel movies?
Ah, okay. So, in no particular order.
No particular order. No.
Okay. So it's a tough one. It would be, and a lot of it is because of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So Guardians of the Galaxy 1
That's a good one.
for me, because that one was, I didn't know what I expect. And that movie
Yeah,
that kind of blew me away, right?
it still holds up too.
Yeah, it still holds up. So some of those movies I will rewatch, or I will
Mm-hmm.
put them on in the background and just do stuff with them in the background, because they're so easy, because I know them. The
Mm-hmm.
pacing, it's just easy to have on in the background.
Yeah.
So then it's a toss up between, say, Infinity War and Endgame.
Mm.
I would gotta go with Endgame because of the event that was, watching that in the cinema,
Yeah.
building up for 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, when I went, people got up in the theater and saluted Thanos when he was
Yeah.
being killed. I've never seen. I never. It was like I met people and I met friends who are only my friends from standing in line, because we
Yeah.
showed every 3 months. Because I used to watch the movies as soon as I didn't want any spoilers. So if it first
Yeah.
showing, I used to watch it. So I kind of met friends with that. So I would be Guardians of the Galaxy 1, Endgame, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So those
Guardians of the
are
Galaxy 3 was so I feel like it's underrated. and how good
It
that movie is.
is, that movie is, because if you think about it too, in terms of it coming full circle and it being Rocket's story,
Right.
yeah, and then like in the end when he finds out he's a raccoon, it was really touching. And you know what I mean? So it was, that was a really good movie. I was kind of happy that James Gunn was able to come back and do that, because I think he was the only body who could do those movies. He
Hmm.
was the only one. Um, you know, there's so, that was a really hard choice, because they said that the close runner would be Infinity War,
Right.
but yeah, those would be it for me. I really love the
That's
Guardians of the Galaxy movies,
that's
and even
really good
and then
choice.
there's, yeah, and the Thor with Hulk, that was like Planet Hulk. Yeah, that was
Hmm.
another one that was a, yeah, those are
Oh
honorable
yeah, the
mentions.
Thor Ragnarok.
Ragnarok, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that
So
was a
those
good
were
one.
for me.
That was a good one. Nice. I like it. I like your list. That's really good. Really solid. All right. So let's talk about your story.
Mhm.
Critical Ops Task Force. Can you tell us one the backstory of where it came from, and then a little bit about what it's about?
Okay, so I have a love for science fiction, and
Hmm.
a certain type of science fiction. We know that science fiction is a very broad term to different types, different flavors. You got from Star Wars to your Star Trek, and then you have things that are a little bit more dystopian, like Mad Max.
Hmm.
So I kind of like that dystopian future world kind of thing. Something like Elysium, District 9, that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
where the tech feels like possible tech that we're heading towards.
Okay.
And right, so, but I'm also fascinated with stories about mercenaries, coups, cults, and that kind of stuff. And I like the idea of doing a story in the future because it gives you that freedom. You're not tied to stuff that's going on now. You're not tied to world politics now. You
Hmm.
can allude to it. You can make reference to it, but you can do it in your own style. So that's what I wanted to do with science fiction. That's why I went with science fiction.
Hmm.
So this, but then at the same time, I wanted to do a Caribbean twist, have the characters from the Caribbean,
Hmm.
and let it be from the view of the characters being from the third world, and
Mm.
how people from the third world view people in the more developed nations, where we kind of get the rejects, we kind of get the leftovers. So that's where, so that's like the theme of the story. Um, so it follows Critical Ops Task Force. Now, what I'm describing is the world, but Critical Ops Task Force now is just one small element of it, one story, one chapter, and that follows a group of mercenaries who are basically like Blackwater, high tech, uh, government, not quite, not corporate government, but more corporate mercenaries. So they belong
Hmm.
to a company, highest bidder kind of thing. So, you know, highest bidder, uh, money is always right.
Yeah.
And the idea is to create stories where uh, you have characters who are operating in the gray area. So when
Hmm.
people are operating in the gray area, you get to see a little bit of their humanity more, because they have to make those hard choices, they have to follow orders and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Versus your typical good versus evil,
Hmm.
where it's very easy to tell who's the good guy because they're on the side of right. So
Hmm.
that's why I went with the mercenaries and that kind of stuff.
I like that. There's one thing that you did in here that I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's the concept that you had of them being corporate mercenaries. It
Mhm.
reminded me a lot of the Suicide Squad, just minus the bombs in the neck type of thing. But it definitely reminded me of the Suicide Squad and having these characters that have technically a healing factor due to
Mhm.
the nanites in their body, but they're all very unique in regards to how they interact with each other and how they interact with the world. There's a couple characters I definitely want to ask you about in a bit, but I want to dive into this story a little bit more because one of the things I liked about how you had the story progress is that it initially starts with us seeing these characters in a mission, and then it goes to us seeing like the the target or the person they're supposed to be rescuing.
Mhm.
And when you were working on this story and going through trying to like plot out how things were going to go, was it one of those things of, okay, this story has to start out with high action, like I have to grab their attention
Okay.
immediately?
No. So a lot of it, a lot of my approach to the story is a result of years of experience. So
Mm-hmm.
the idea was, well, I looked at what was going on in terms of the trend or the industry among the indies, and I realized that even if you got a good story from somebody, from say you get from your Concrete, Midnight
Mm-hmm.
Comics, uh, Wise Acre, whoever you get your comics from, most of the time you get a book one, and then you have to wait a year for book two. You know what I mean? So, or maybe 6 months. So, one of the things that I wanted to do was try to give a complete story. So, which means it means I had to come with a formula, and then you're also dealing with economics too, because pages cost money. So, I kind of try to
Mm-hmm.
set a page limit. I said, well, can I tell a story in 28 pages? So, when you do that, it means that you have to start to strip away some of the filler or some of the stuff that,
Yeah.
even though it may seem interesting, you don't need it. So
Mm-hmm.
I could have started from them getting the briefing, leaving the base, but it wasn't needed. You just needed to jump right in. So I kind of took it from, you remember you'd watch a movie like James Bond or you watch something.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes these stories start with you in the middle of a mission. I did the
Yep.
in yeah, so that's the concept. I want to say, well, let me jump in as close as I can that the reader can still understand what's going on and it not be confusing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that was the reason for the way how the pacing is done. It's a little bit of economics and to try to get a complete story within 28 pages. So you try to be as as tight as possible, and it takes a lot of mathematics and formulas to kind of make sure that it hits those beats.
Mm-hmm. That is true. One of the things I can definitely confirm is that your story is a page turner. And I feel like, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to comics, that's the biggest thing. You want to be able to have a
Yeah,
story that people are like, okay, I need to go to the next page because that keeps them coming back. And
yeah.
I think you did that really well. It's funny because this past week on Threads, someone had made a post about that saying the biggest thing that people who write comics should know is how important math is when it comes to writing comics. And that is so true because, like you said,
Yeah.
like you need to have, if you know you're going to have a 28-page story, you need to make sure that the beats hit on each of the pages at a certain point so that you have the right amount of panels per page so that the story flows and it doesn't feel too fast, doesn't feel too slow, and it doesn't kind of feel wonky. So that's really good advice. So a couple of characters I want to ask you about because these were the ones that kind of caught my eye.
Mhm.
First, I want to ask about St. James and McPherson. Those are the first two we meet when we open this story. Um, was there any inspiration for each of those characters, and kind of how did you come about developing them when you were writing the story?
Okay, so as I said, like I kind of take a little bit from a lot of the media and a lot of stuff. I play a lot of video games and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, the older games where they had that kind of excitement. And there was a
Mm-hmm.
character in there, Salt McTavish. So I kind of like
Mm.
that Mick
Okay.
name. So that's kind of where I kind of based the McPherson from, right? But I
Yeah.
also wanted him to be crazy. I wanted him to be over the top. I wanted him to be able to say things that nobody else could say.
Oh
Um,
yeah, he definitely does
you,
that.
you, yeah, yeah. He's supposed to be. I find okay. So I wanted to do something too where most people who try to do or tend to do a character know who is a little different and a
Hmm.
little bit chatty, they tend to go the Deadpool route. So I
Yeah,
wanted, yeah, and everybody's kind of doing their version of a Deadpool.
yeah.
So I didn't want to do a Deadpool. So I wanted to do something that was different. So
Hmm.
it was someone who was almost like belligerent, who didn't care about social graces and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? So I want to do that. So that's where he comes from. He and also being invincible in terms of with the healing factor and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
It can change you. It can change. I was watching. I remember watching something, reading something where there was a comic book where I think when Wolverine lost his healing factor, he had to change the way he fought because
Hmm.
he dived straight into stuff because he knew he was like almost invincible.
Right.
So equally, McPherson, he has that kind of like bravado. He comes jumping with two axes. You know,
Hmm.
he's just crazy balls to the wall action kind of guy. So that's where he comes from. Uh, St. James, no, he's a more stoic character.
Hmm.
Uh, I want to make him. I want to make him a leader who his men kind of trust and will follow
Hmm.
to the end of the world. And he kind of takes a little bit from basically Metal Gear because I was played all the games right up. So I think to the last one, he's not quite like a Metal Gear. What's his name? Solid Snake clone,
Okay.
but he would be. He's almost like a character that could be in that kind of world
Hmm.
because he always had those kind of really crazy characters, but he's just kind of reserved. So he's a kind of jaded character too. He's a person who
Hmm.
has seen things, he's done things, and different from McPherson, where McPherson has become crazier and wilder. He has
Hmm.
become a lot more tame,
Yeah.
and the character, the story is centered. He's supposed to basically be the main character, and
Yeah.
the so every character. So one of the things too with writing an ensemble cast is having to give each person a different personality
Yep.
strong enough that you can tell who they are from their dialogue.
Hmm.
So that was something that I had to study, right? So my favorite character, or one of my favorite characters, is Jess. So
I was
Jess
just about to
is
ask you about
the
her.
so Jess is the she is the newest member, and she is almost like that surrogate for the reader
Yeah.
that can get stuff on, and I want to make her not just be one of the guys. So technically she's not quite a doctor, but she has medical training,
Hmm.
and she also has a conscience where none of the
Hmm.
other guys have a conscience. That's
That
the
is true. I noticed that, and towards the end of this first story, like we kind of see her, some of her traits kind of rub off on St. James a little, which is going to come up as another question later for me towards you. But yeah, I like their dynamics. I think you did a really good job with differentiating each of the characters. I would say you nailed it with McPherson being kind of like, I don't want to give him like the Deadpool type, but I guess that's the closest comp that we can really have with it. That's kind of like what he is in a sense. And then McPherson, he reminded me a lot of like a Deadshot type of character. You know, the kind that is trying to be
I
very
mean, Mr.
calculated.
James, Mr.
St.
James.
James, yes, St. James, yeah.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
reminds me
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of like a dead shot type of character. You know, very calculated, kind of
yeah,
cold, but you can tell he actually does have some type of conscience down there. So that's
yeah,
kind of what I felt with St.
yeah,
James,
yeah.
and I really like Jess. especially since you mentioned that she's kind of like our entry point into this universe. I think that works very well, especially with this being not only our first entry into who these characters are, but also just this first mission.
Hmm.
So my last character I want to ask you about, Rosetta. She is I guess the broker for the team is the best way to put it. She's the one that sends
Yeah.
them out on the mission. She's the one that lets them know what the intel is, things of that nature. And there's like halfway through, or a little over halfway through the story, she's like, "Wait, hold up, don't do this. I'm getting new intel," and like they decide to go against her orders, which I feel like is setting up something later on down the line based off of how it ended. But I want to know, was Rosetta one of the tougher characters for you to create, or was she one of those characters that just kind of, as you came up with the story, was like, oh yeah, I have to have this type of character?
It was kind of like as I came up with it. So I would say this was one of the more easier because I kind of have a world Bible and I kind of knew what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to have a, a team that was
Mm-hmm.
crazy, and I wanted somebody who would have been the middleman between them and the
Mm-hmm.
company, who was looking out for them and still trying to get them to do what the company wants. And at the same time, on a long enough timeline, something is supposed to go wrong in terms of like, this is nothing. This kind of sets up, this is a small issue. So
Mm-hmm.
you could imagine that probably later on down the line, there's going to be even, they're going to deviate off the rails even more and more, or she's going to have to cover for them, or she's going to have to cut them off, or something. So I just wanted that. One of the things one of my editors in the past, when I first was writing, he said, every scene you do in the comic book, you need to have tension. And it was one of those things I kind of scoffed at. And I was like, you don't need tension for every scene because blah, blah, blah. But as I started to develop or as a writer, I realized that tension doesn't always mean conflict, but it just means that you have to have this kind of two people kind of going against or not on the same wavelength. So that's where Rosetta comes in. It helps with,
Mm-hmm.
so even she's not a foil to Douglas, but in a way, she too is kind of reining him in, or he has her respect on, and she respects him kind of. So
Mm-hmm.
it's to kind of show the different levels of the different characters and that kind of stuff. I have a lot of plans to kind of develop her further. I think everybody I kind of want to develop them further,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how long the series goes on. And as you said, what it even though it's a one shot in book two, we kind of feel the repercussions of them going rogue. So they kind
Mm-hmm.
of get punished for it in book two. But it's a different story. So it means that if you read book one, you could kind of understand how they got where they are in book two. But if you
Mm-hmm.
just come in at book two, it just feels like another one shot. So that's the idea, to kind of do these independent stories that have a loose link together, but you're seeing the characters develop from story to story.
That's nice. I like that. I like that layered storytelling that you're working with. That I think that adds more immersion to the world
Mhm.
and makes it easier to be a reader and be like, okay, I gotta, because like once you finish the series and you've wrapped everything up the way you wanted to, people can go back and just see how everything was kind of layered together. So that's perfect. I like that. And I'm glad you mentioned book two,
Mhm.
because that brings me to mainly what we wanted to talk about on this episode, which is your Kickstarter. Um,
Yeah.
you have a Kickstarter that's going to be coming soon. That is going to be
It's
for the
so it's
first volume.
yeah, so it's the first volume. Um,
Okay.
so so the volume will include book one, it will
Mm-hmm.
include book two, and then it'll also include book three. And book three is basically a double issue. So book three is 60 pages.
Mm,
So since I was working on it, I said, well, I just bring it out as a volume because I think I like the idea of trades. They're not as fragile as a floppy. You know, you
mm,
could kind of read it. You could, if you wish, you could lend it to someone, and they shouldn't be able to destroy it as easily. So, and you know, I always believe too that you want a book that you could sit and you could read, and we always said too you can read a chapter, put it down, come back, read another chapter.
mm.
So the volume one of Critical Ops Task Force is launching in late August, early September
Okay.
on Kickstarter. I'm doing an early kind of campaign because I'm trying to get the word out. I'm not one of the most popular writers, so or the IP isn't that popular. So I'm trying to get people,
Mm,
eyes on it, know
makes
about it.
sense.
You know what I mean? There's also you can get the followers. So if you want to, you can go on the Kickstarter,
Hmm.
search for Critical Ops Task Force Volume One, and you can go to the follow and just be a follower, and you'll be notified when it's launched.
Yeah. I will have the link below for everyone who wants to go follow currently. As
Mhm.
I'm looking at it, and actually for you who are on YouTube, I'll actually show you what the campaign looks like right now. Um, here we go. So
Yeah.
if you're on YouTube, you can see this, but the Kickstarter campaign for Critical Ops Task Force is currently in the pre-launch phase. It has 89 followers. So if you go to the link, come here, hit saved, it'll add more followers, and then you'll be notified when this goes live, so that you too can back this campaign once it launches.
Yeah, there's
And
a
if you
few preview pages on there also.
there is are those from like just the
They're
book three, or are they from?
from book two and book three. So you get a sneak peek of book two and book three on the site. Right now, we're in the process of coloring book three.
Okay.
Book two is done. So the idea too is the long lead time is to make sure that the book is finished, so that by the time we do go to Kickstarter,
Mhm.
everything is kind of done. Maybe just finish up a few like covers if there's any stretch goals or little small things like that. Maybe an edit or two, but basically I want to make sure that the book is at least 95% done by the time the Kickstarter starts.
Nice. That's a good rule of thumb, honestly. Um, so, I mean, Nigel, this has been great. I've
Thank you.
enjoyed being able to kind of talk to you just in general, and then get to know more about your story, because I got to read the book. I enjoyed it,
Thank you.
but to kind of get a little bit more background behind some of the things that I had some questions on is great. Just a few more questions, and I will let you go.
Mhm.
First question for you: outside of Critical Ops Task Force, are you working on any other stories currently that
Okay.
you can talk about? I should say.
So the interesting thing about Critical Ops Task Force, it is a small part of a larger universe.
Hmm.
So there's another book I have out right now called The Diary of the Stray Dogs,
Hmm.
and that is also set in the same universe. So you can also get these books on wiseacre.usa,
Hmm.
wiseacrecomics.usa. So that is another book I'm working on. And there's another book I did called Neon Ghosts, which
Oh
is
yeah, I
also
got that book.
you got that. Okay,
I do
cool.
have that book. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was a really good book. Actually, I read that.
right. So the COTF guys are in Neon Ghosts. They're the people who save her
That
in,
makes.
and that's
Okay.
Douglas. Douglas is the guy, and Douglas is the guy who
Yeah.
saves her.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right,
Okay.
right. So
Dope.
it's all connected, right? So yeah. So it's things like that where when you see it and then it comes together, you're like, oh, that's right. So
Mm.
the whole uh the stories all take place over like a 10-year span, with
Mm.
Critical Ops being the earliest. and stories like Neon Ghost being the, let's say, closer to the present. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
that's so if you would notice in most of these stories is it always starts, it has a year telling you what
Hmm.
year is. And that is because to give you an idea of where you are in the timeline of events.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm gonna have to pull out my copy of Neon Ghost and kind of look through that again now, because I
Right.
did not even like I didn't even pay attention to that when I was like reading the cover, but it does say that actually now that I look at it again. So that's dope actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Sweet. So final question for you, Nigel, and then I'll let you go. Thank you again for coming on here and kind of letting me pick your brain. But say you get someone that's interested in pitching their story to Wise Acre Comics. What would be your piece of advice to help them pitch their story?
Um, I would say one, you have to kind of believe in your story.
Mm,
So that would take, make sure you've done all you can with it. You've bring something that is polished, meaning that
mm,
bring your story where someone can sit down and ask you questions about it, ask you stuff about characters, and you understand, you know all this stuff. Um, and also at the same time, be willing to take advice.
mm,
Because if you're coming to someone, maybe able to tell you something about your story, about your book that you may have not noticed, or so it's about being sure and knowing what you want about your work, but
mm,
still being flexible enough to be open to critique and to learn at the same time. Because especially if it's your first book, you're
mm,
not always perfect. You know what I mean? And try to, as I said, as I always say, try to have fun with it, because only people who are into comic book creation really understand how frustrating it is. It's one of the most stressful things.
it
It is so
is.
stressful, and people don't see that part, or people don't acknowledge that part. It is very, very stressful. So be prepared to put in that work to
Hmm.
see that book come to the end, and then when you finish, you know that your story is, there's still more to go. One of the things I would advise someone, if it is possible, but this is a matter of preference, also try to do something smaller.
Mm,
I find a lot of people come with their very, very first book, and you ask them, wow, okay, so how many issues do you have planned? And they say 37. You're like, you didn't even finish one. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Try to come with something manageable, and the reason is you want to be able to have stuff that is finished, meaning
Mm,
something in a trade, and we do a trade, the trade
yeah.
has a full arc, not that the trade is to be continued. These things help too with your stuff being picked up by other
Mm,
media, because the person can see what it is and know how it ends, versus like you have something running and they want it but you haven't finished the story. So therefore, you start to get, you kind of get a Game of Thrones kind of conflict kind of thing.
that is true. That is so true. Well, that's great advice, Nigel. Anyone who is interested in pitching to Wiseacre, take those tips because I mean Nigel's there. He knows
Yeah,
what they're
yeah,
not going to do nothing.
yeah.
And he wrote a really good book in Critical Ops Task Force as well as Neon Ghost. Like I said, I read both of those really good. I have to get the other book now because now that I know they're all in the same universe, that has me intrigued. So, Nigel, thank you again for coming on here.
No, I appreciate you
Um,
having me. I actually enjoy your show. I
I appreciate that.
watch it all the time.
Well, I appreciate that. I think this is the first to have someone on that actually watches the show. So it's kind of like a full circle moment. Before I let you go, though, let the people know where they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Okay, so you can follow me. My work is on Wise Acre Comics USA. You can also find my work on beyondcaribbean.com.
Mhm.
And on Instagram, my official page is the Nigel Verse on Instagram.
Nice. All right, everyone. The Links to the website and to Nigel's Instagram will be linked below. So go check those out and give Nigel a follow. And follow Wise Acre Comics if you're not, because why aren't you? And go get the books. Go get Critical Ops Task Force. Go get Neon Ghost. The other one, I think, I can't remember what the name of the other one was. It
The Diary of Stray Dogs.
Diary of Stray Dogs. Go get all of them. Read them. Nigel's great. He's a really good, fun writer. So go check it out. Again, this has been the Divergent Comics podcast. I am Gary. Go read some Wise Acre Comics.